Hi there and welcome to the Peninsula Angling Club training videos. My name's Dirk Botha and this is Chapter 2, Episode 3, and today we are going to be spooling a reel. Remember back in Chapter 1 I said your main line is going to be nothing thicker than 0.2 millimeters. I have to concentrate to say that because normally I say 2 millimeters and that's wrong. 0.2 millimeters, that's how thick it needs to be, maximum. The thing is, if you're going to be using that and only that on something like the Akuma longbows, you're going to need more than 600 meters to fill that reel. So what we do is we put on what we call backing. Backing is typically a much thicker line. It would be something like a 0.3 millimeter or a 0.45 millimeter. What we do then is we spool on mine. If you're not using the Akuma Longbow 650s, you're going to have to experiment with this yourself. But on mine, I need to put of a 0.3 millimeter line around 185 meters and then cut it and then put my main line onto that, and of my main line I spool 300 meters on. It's a bit of an effort, but it saves you money, it saves you fishing line, and yeah, 300 meters is more than long enough for what it is that we do. You are going to need a little tool in order to make all of this work though. And that little tool is what we call a line mate. Most tackle shops have them, especially the saltwater guys. This is a depth finder, they call it a depth finder, but you use it to put your line around there, and as you're reeling you can actually see how far you've reeled using this depth gauge. Instructions for how to attach it are on the box, and if I'm not mistaken they cost around 120 bucks. Very useful tool to have. It removes the guessing out of spooling the correct amount of line onto your reel. Right, in order to get your line onto an empty spool, alright, if you've got an empty spool and you want to put your backing onto it, what you would like to do is to take your line, make a little line, trying to be very careful to show you here, and then you make a knot. That's it, just a knot, so that you basically have a free running loop. What you do then is you take your spool, you put this loop around it, and you pull tight, and then you start reeling it in. That then is how you get your backing onto your spool. In my case, again, I have to put around 185 meters of 0.3 or 0.4 millimeter line on, and then I attach my main line to my backing. My main line I put 300 meters on, and then onto my main line I put my leader. I know it's a bit daunting, but trust me, it's not all that difficult. Now that you know how to make this knot and put it onto your spool, and you've got 185 meters on your, or whatever it is in your case, onto your spool, that's the spool on your fishing reel, then there are a couple of things you need to know about putting your main line on. Your backing, honestly guys, your backing is backing. It's there for when you've got your back against the wall, literally. If you've spooled out 300 meters of line and the fish is still running, good luck landing that fish. And I mean this with all sincerity. If you've ended up in a situation where a fish has taken all your line and is getting onto your backing, you've got something huge on. That's. I hope I'm there to see it. So, right. But as you can see, with this reel, I already have my backing on. Right. I don't have an empty spool to show you how to put the backing on. I mean, really, it is. You loop it on, get it through, and start reeling. That is honestly how simple it is. And you get 185 meters of it on there, which is what I've done in this case. Once that is done, you can see here I just have a little rod that I've got my reel onto, and I'm feeding my line through the eye here. Now I'm going to tie my backing to my main line. And yes, I'm going to be using the knot that I showed you in episode 1 of chapter 2. Your backing in this case is the thick line. So you take your spool of main line, your thick line gets to get the little rabbit ears in it. There's the backing with the rabbit ears. If you don't know what I mean by that, go back to episode 1 of this chapter. You take your main line, put it through there, pull tight, keep your finger there to have a little loop, twist the line, your main line around the backing 4 or 5 times, 6 or 8 depending on how you find your line reacts to the scenario. Push it through, lubricate and tighten, and there you go. Now at this point, most guys would take this and have a friend put a pencil or something through it and start spooling. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Do not do that. Other guys will take this, dump it in a bucket of water and start spooling. Wrong, wrong, wrong. If you've done that and you ended up with line that looks like it's twisting in and upon itself and that keeps making crow's nests or winds around the eyes on your fishing rod, that is why. What you want to do is you want to take a look at the direction, and I'm going to, hold on, I need to show you this. The Akuma longbows, when you're looking at them, do you see the bail turns? If you're looking at it from the rear of the reel, the bail turns clockwise. Oh, sorry, that is anti-clockwise. Right? What you want is to get your main line to lie on your spool of your reel in such a way that it literally lies exactly the way it lies on the spool it comes on when you buy it. So when you look at the spool, you want the line to come off in the same clock direction as your reel is turning. In the case of the Okuma longbows, that is anti-clockwise. In other words, you want to see, when you're looking at the spool, the line hanging down on your right hand side. If your reel spools clockwise, you want it to be the other way around. That is how you get your line, well, your fishing line onto your spool and prevent it from making all kinds of twists. In order to do this little exercise though, I need to introduce you to my friend Mr. Clamp over there. I'm sure you can see it. Big old Mr. Clamp right here. Because I'm alone, I don't have a sexy assistant to help me do this magic trick. I have to do it by myself. What I did is I got myself a nice long bolt. I push it through the spool that is bought, and I give it a nut to hold it in place with. And you really just want it to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be tight. In fact, you don't want it to be tight. You just want it to be held in place. Then I go to trusty Mr. Vice, and keep in mind, I want to see the line spool off on the as it comes off, it needs to come off anti-clockwise, so I want the line to hang on the right side of the spool. If you were using a reel that spooled clockwise, you would want it to hang on the left side of the spool. Okay? Right, so Mr. Vice over here is going to hold on to my spool for me. So my line measuring tool is going to clamp onto the fishing rod. Now I just need to remember how to do this. Alright. So, yep, there we go. Honestly guys, it's worth going through this effort because accuracy in measuring your line actually makes for a much better casting, much more consistent casting between the various reels. Think about it. If you've got multiple reels and each one of them has varying amounts of line on them, you're not going to cast the same distance with each reel. Again, if you're angling socially, you can take this with a pinch of salt. You can make it. You can go as far as you want to, or do as little as you want to. Right, and I need to check that I'm putting this on properly. Right, that goes there. Turns around. Obviously, your measurement tool might be different to this one, so I'm not going to show how this particular one works. It's a bit pointless. Okay, and then I'm going to start spooling, and I'm going to have to turn my back on you because I need to point my reel at my spool. Right? You want to point your rod at your spool so that it literally comes off in a straight line. Don't pull it tight or anything. Just make sure that you have enough tension when holding it in your between your thumb and your finger. You're going to be holding it like this between your thumb and your finger, and make sure that you've got enough tension on it. Okay? I'm just going to move this closer to the eye so that I know what I'm working with. There we go. And from here on it's simple. Really, it is a matter of spooling. one thing that I didn't forget is to cut the line. Here, give yourself some room to work with. In terms of the tail ends, this is going to be, you're never going to get to this point. Well, you should never get to this point while fishing. So let me zero this out. And that's it. Something you need to keep in mind, guys, again, in South Africa, casting distance is critical. You need to actually kind of overfill your reel in order to get maximum casting distance. A lot of guys are going to say, don't do it, you're going to put twists in your lines. Yes, you are. Unfortunately, that is a reality we have to work with. It's a very fine balance that we have to achieve between overspooling and the risk of creating crow's nests. That is why this form of spooling line onto your reel is so critical. Do it this way. I've been doing it this way, and honestly, since I've just done it this way, I've never had a crow's nest, not once. So yeah, the key here is to get your line off of your spool and onto your reel, and have it lie exactly the same way that it lies when it's on the spool. Okay, and now we begin. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy exercise because I need to put 300 meters of line onto this reel. Yes, I'm going to make you watch it all. I'm not going to edit this. Remember to keep a nice even tension using your thumb and your index finger. As you progress through this, check your measurement tool every now and again to make sure that you're not going over 300 meters. Right now I'm on 118 meters. We carry on. The longer you reel, the less line is on the spool that you're reeling from, and the more line is on your fishing reel. That means that the longer you reel, the faster the line comes off. Keep that in mind. We are at 172 meters. $259. At this point you want to start slowing down. $292. $303. Close enough. And now what I normally do is I do a bit of an inspection on the lay of the line on my spool, and I make sure it lies flat or tapered towards the back. It might be different for your reel, so ask people that have your reel and have experience with it to give you an indication of how the line should lay on your spool in terms of whether it should be tape it towards the spool, tape it away from the spool, or flat. In my case, I need to have it just flat. So I do a little visual inspection, I take a look, I'm happy with the way this lies, and this reel is ready. Yes, this reel is going to nationals with me in March. This is 0.2mm line. The venue we're going to is apparently close in angling with potential for tempo angling. So I'm going to be taking 0.2mm spools, at least 6 of them, and then yeah, and on top of that I'll be taking some of my Legend 0.17mm line. Guys, that's it. I'm going to go over the pointers again. Your reel, when you're turning the handle, you take a look at which direction the bail is going in. The bail in this case is going anti-clockwise. That means I want the spool to be facing my reel, and I want the line to come off in an anti-clockwise direction. That means that the line needs to hang on the right side of the spool. And really, guys, if your reel is turning in a clockwise direction when you're looking at it, and the bail goes that way towards your right, then all you do is you take this, swap it around. In other words, then the line lies on the left hand side of the spool. Left hand side. There you go. And you spool it on that way. Again, I'm warning you, this is the only line spooling mechanism I've ever used that has reliably prevented line twists. Yes, the quality of the line you use also plays a role, but really, guys, this I've never had any problems with it, and it has actually changed my life in terms of fishing, because I no longer waste time with undoing crow's nests. That then, ladies and gents, is the end of episode 3 of chapter 2. Next week's episode is about how to make and store your leader line. I will then have a very short episode on how to put your leader line onto your reel, and how you get all of that into a combination of fishing rod reel lined through the hoops of the reel with your rig at the end attached. It's going to be a very short episode, and the episode directly after that will be at the water. So this is next week's episode. That's episode 4 of chapter 2, then episode 5 of chapter 2, then episode 6 of chapter 2. We will be at the water. I'm pretty sure you are tired of my voice. So guys, thank you very much. I will be seeing you in the next one. Ciao.